Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to do something a little bit interesting. I wanted to talk about a specific blog post. Now this is something that I covered 2 weeks ago on Overwatch Weekly, but it's something that I've really just kind of been interested in and looking at and just kind of, it, part of it is very interesting to me. And this was this blog post by TP's Behind You, which was Revert hero balance back to where it was before GOATs. And the whole premise of this, and I'll read it here again, is basically that the game stinks right now, and they should go back to where the game was before GOATs. So, he opens up with several points. Nobody likes triple shield meta. I wouldn't say that's necessarily true, but I would definitely say it's not the most popular meta. Streamers and other personalities who are supposed to represent your game at its best call this game dead and unplayable due to how stupid this meta is. I don't think streamers and other personalities are supposed to represent the game at its best. They're supposed, they do what they want. One of the tweets he included was a tweet from XQC. Since when has XQC been someone who's supposed to represent the game at its best? He got suspended from the Overwatch League. He got dropped from the Overwatch League. No one from the Overwatch League wants to sign XQC, and that's the person that you choose. XQC is not someone who's supposed to represent the game at its best, right? Like, that to me is just an absurd thing. And it's also, that's not their job. They're not paid to like the game. They play the game because they enjoy the game, and if they have problems with the game, they're going to say they have problems with the game. There's nothing wrong with saying that the game has issues. But, he says, everything was much better before GOATs, which is kind of true to some people. I actually really enjoyed GOATs. I thought GOATs was really fun to watch, and I thought it was fun to play every so often, but not all the time. And then the final point is there is literally no reason not to do it, which is not true at all. There's plenty of reasons not to do it. One is that the amount of heroes that have been added since before GOATs is a lot. GOATs itself didn't necessarily start until the summer of 2018, roughly. But I mean, the place that kind of was the catalyst for it, that then began to see the development of it, was the addition of Brigitte into the game, which was back in March of 2018. So you'd be saying, let's go all the way back to March of 2018 and just put the game back at that point in time. Get rid of all the updates. Here's the problem with that. If you do that, yes, you can revert the updates, which is, in general, would be stupid and hard to do and difficult. Not every hero is in a place where it's not good. Two, you're not going to just remove heroes from the game. This person's basically saying you just got to get rid of Sigma, you got to get rid of Baptiste, and you got to get rid of Ashe and Brigitte, and you got to get rid of Wrecking Ball. What? That's an absurd thing to say. I just think it's ridiculous that this person even says that there's literally no reason not to do it. There's plenty of reasons not to do it. They've put in a lot of work to get the game to where it is now, to the point where it's a 2-2-2 meta, right? So you'd be saying, the game spent a year plus doing all of these different things to improve the game, at least to what they believed would improve the game, and you're saying, screw all that, let's get rid of all of that. There's plenty of reasons not to do it, because if they do it, they would have wasted a year of development for this game, and that's not something you can get back. So I just think it's really dumb, and I just think this whole post is absurd. And some of the other things, some of these tweets aren't even like necessarily things that are critical of the game in some ways, right? Like, Valkia had one which is just, if you're wondering what Overwatch looks like in 2019, this video says it all, which is, and then it shows all like the barrier stuff. It's definitely not like a good tweet, but it's not like a overly critical tweet. Harblue sets like the fact that Blizzard let this patch go through to old playoffs is actually wild. As fun as hero as Sigma is to play, this is rough to watch. I actually disagree completely. I think this is a really fun meta to watch. I actually have really enjoyed it so far, because there's so much different stuff than what they think. Granted, this is obviously from 15 days ago. A lot has changed since then. This is back in August, this post. Or technically it was back in September, but a lot of these tweets from back in August and whatnot. Like, the thing is, like, and things have changed, right? This is before we really saw New York going all in with those Bastion compositions and a lot of different things. So things have obviously changed, and it's not the same as this when this post was made, the way that things have gone. But I just think this whole post is ridiculous. Now Josh No, of course, replied to this whole thing and said a lot of things that I thought were very important and understandable. Because I think they are very they explain a lot of what's going on. They kind of explain a lot of the game development side and all that kind of stuff. So he says, balance changes take time. There'll be more to come going forward. We've just barely entered into 222 roll queue and released a new hero at the same time. It's important to collect statistics and data as well as feedback to make informed decisions. You can't just make decisions right away. Just say, okay, well, this isn't very popular, so let's do all this stuff. No, you got to give it some time. You have to see what people are playing, what things make sense. This is a huge change that just went through. They're going to have to take some time to get things in a position where everything is working well and things look good. And then he said, reverting all balance changes over the last year is unlikely to happen. Any hero change could potentially affect a new meta to some degree, but not all changes are directly targeted at the current meta, if that makes sense, which of course is basically him saying we've known about 222 for a while, so some of the things we did like buffing Soldier or McCree or Junkrat were never done to affect 3/3 goats. You weren't seeing Soldier or McCree or Junkrat in those metas, but we were preparing them for when we get to the 222 meta, because in our game we're playing with heroes that are at this point where they are in a 222 meta, so we're trying to make sure that they're at a point that's good, and we can roll those changes out on the live servers anyway, because we've done them in our lab, if you want to call it that, so we can just do that now in the live servers, because why not? It makes sense, just do that. People who want to play this heroes can play this heroes, they'll feel a lot better, all that kind of stuff. And then he says, the goal of the changes that actually were aimed at GOATs were not to kill it entirely, but to weaken it enough, without destroying the individual heroes, that other new compositions could arise to compete with it. Though it took a long time, with the results of Stage 3 of the Overwatch League, I consider that at least somewhat successful. Even if solutions are hypothetically available, any meta is ultimately dictated by the players. We are in a meta. Look, the barrier meta hasn't even been around for that long. Sigma got added into the game last month in August. And people are complaining already about this meta being bad. And also, this meta has been around for literally a month. It hasn't even been around for that long. Over time, things will change. Updates will come. GOATS was around for over a year. Dive was around for 2 or 3 years. These are things that have been around forever. There has been no changes in a lot of these things. It's absurd to say after a month that they need to just do this super crazy change. Metas take time to develop. Things will change over time, and I think that the idea that we should go back to a point where there weren't all of these changes and we were in an area where there wasn't any double barrier and all that kind of stuff would be ridiculous, right? You have to see things change naturally. I've had the most fun playing Overwatch that I've ever had, especially in competitive, with the 222 changes and all that kind of stuff. I never liked playing competitive before, and now I play it all the time because I actually really enjoy it. I feel like it's a lot better. I think it's easier to play, even if I'm playing heroes that I'm not super crazy about. I'm not a huge fan of Orisa. I'd prefer to not have to play a main tank, especially a barrier tank, right? I'd rather play, a Zarya or a D.Va or a Roadhog or even Reinhardt over Orisa, But you play what you need to play. But I've still had a lot more fun than I've ever had. I've had a lot more success than I've ever had before. I just think the idea that we should revert hero balance back to where it was before GOATs, a meta that is as old as time pretty much, not really, but it was around for such a long time, would be crazy, right? Double barrier is a lot easier, I think, to change and tweak than GOATs was, because the problem with GOATs was that it was a fundamental thing, right? You can't really kill GOATs just because of the way it works. It's super team oriented, all that kind of stuff. Whereas double barrier is something that it's so young and so new that we will see how it changes over time. I think the idea that we need to go back all this way is ridiculous. It's absurd. I don't really see why that is the thing that people want to see. I think it would be worse for the game if they just went back to this point in time before all that, because it would completely ruin the balance of the game, right? The game was not really balanced before GOATs came into existence. Dive was not a balanced meta. There were heroes in Dive that were very, very strong, that were really, really good, and that you couldn't do anything about. yes, there are heroes like Widowmaker or Ashe or Hanzo, or McCree in a sense that aren't as good in this barrier meta, especially Widowmaker. You can't really play a sniper as well because there's so many barriers you're trying to shoot into. You can't really get the picks because there's barriers in the way and all that kind of stuff. And yes, that is a thing that is a problem with the game right now, but I don't really think that is necessarily the thing that should dictate going all the way back to a year before GOATS was added, right? It's just people who are angry and upset because they don't get to play Tracer or they don't get to play Genji as the way they used to, where DPS heroes are the ones that are carrying teams and all this other stuff. That's all it is at the end of the day. It's people who are angry, it's people who are upset. It's this kind of gut reaction that they just want this thing to happen because they want to play the game like they used to, but that's just not the way it works. You have to be able to adjust to the way the game is played. You have to be able to learn how to play new styles. I really enjoy it. It keeps the game fresh. It keeps the game different. And, it's always something different when you aren't just playing the same hero over and over and over again. When you have to play different heroes and different metas and whatnot, and as heroes change and get better, it is, it's different. But I think the problem is that you have a lot of tank players who don't really like playing Orisa. They'd rather play Reinhardt or Winston or Zarya. They don't really want to play Orisa Sigma every match. You have damage players who don't really want to play Reaper, don't want to play Mei, whoever it is that they're playing. They want to play Widowmaker or Tracer or Hanzo or whatever, and it's just not really the way that the meta works right now. So I understand there's obviously some frustration. I understand why there's some frustration, because people want to play their favorite heroes, and they don't really get the ability to do that. However, I don't think that the solution would be to revert all changes that have ever been done over this past year. I think that would be the worst possible thing you could do, and for that reason, I don't think that is what should be done. I'm curious to know what you think, though. Obviously, this is an older thing now. It's about 2 weeks old at this point in time, but I think it's very interesting. I think it's a really important thing to discuss, is kind of, should the devs consider doing this? Should they not consider doing this? I don't think they will. I don't think they are even going to consider it, but I think it's interesting when you kind of see the way that the community and the devs feel about the game. They're at very different positions. I think there's a lot of misinformation and just lack of knowledge about what actually goes into the development of these games and how long it takes to do this kind of stuff. I think that's a big problem as well. But we will have to wait and see what happens for the rest of this meta and how things change over time. Obviously, we have have since had a new patch where we saw some changes to Sigma, some changes to Zarya, Symmetra, Sombra, that kind of stuff. So it has changed a little bit since then, but not too much. Not to the point where it'll completely change the meta. But like I said, I'm curious to see what you have to say. Curious to hear your thoughts. I'm always loving to hear what other people have to say about this kind of stuff. But that is where I'm going to end this video off. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing, as it does help out a bunch with the channel. But I am going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.